Statham, which is a little different than was planned. Tom stepped in graciously at the last minute as Darren Ball is actually bogged down with English FA stuff and preparations for the Euro. And Tom, welcome. Tom just recently won FA Foundational Coach of the Year, which is, I believe, 9 through 12, and well deserved. And Tom's been at Man United for many, many years, and also coached recent sensations like Marcus Rashford and players breaking into the first team squad. And Tom's going to talk to us about whatever he wants to today, which is going to help us along, and we're going to have some dialogue. So Tom, thanks for joining us. Over to you, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. I think before I go any further, I must say, you said that I've been working at Manchester United since 1990 on that intro. I'm not that old.
Yeah, I know.
1994,
Okay.
but and also in the same way that you might publish it, then I have to say that it's my views and not Manchester United's views, because they get a bit picky about that sort of stuff. So,
yeah,
but I'm quite open to what people want to, are there questions? Do you want to do it that way, where people ask any questions of me?
Well, I think, Tom, if we start like this, firstly, we'll save the Jose Mourinho appointment to the end, and then we'll start with basically what does a typical Man United or training session that you're involved in at United, what does that look like for a 9-year-old? And obviously I've seen it, I've been a part of it, so a few little tidbits there, and then we'll open up to questions and stuff like that.
So working with, say, I work mainly with sort of 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kids, and when you've been down to our training ground, Chris, you've seen, hopefully the first thing that you see is that the environment's really vibrant, and it's really almost electric when the kids come. They're so keen to get there. We're supposed to start at 6, but the kids are there well before 5:45 because they just want to get going, and I think that's a key point. Everyone's busy in their lives, but if you've got a situation where kids are getting there really early for your session, I think that's the first indicator that you're doing something right, because they want to be involved. So as the kids arrive, we don't. I know that a lot of people start. They have a warm up, and then the traditional ways you have warm up, and then some sort of skills practice, and then you develop it into a bit more of a game, a functional type practice, and then you play a game at the end. But we don't do that at all. So as the kids arrive, we get them straight into games, and so again, there might be, usually there's a couple of age groups there, and so as the kid arrives, we'll throw him a bib and say, yep, over on that field over there, during those two, and usually play 3v3s, 4v4s. We've got them basically set up for when the kids arrive, and then we just throw the kids into the different 3v3, 4v4 games, and so they start playing, and then as people arrive again, we get more and more kids playing, and just rotate them around. Bibs rotate clockwise, non-bibs rotate anti-clockwise, so they all play probably 3 or 4 games, different games, until about, say, 20 past, 25 past 6. So they get, if you arrive at 5:45, by the, you've played 30, 35 minutes of 3v3s, 4v4s, right at the start of the session, and the standard's amazing. I know you've been there a few times, Chris, and it's just a pleasure to watch, because the kids are so creative and so enthusiastic, and the level of play is very, very high. Certainly way too good for me to get involved in now at my age. But so then what tends to happen there is the kids are going to have a drink, and then we'll split them into groups. Now, sometimes we split them by age group, and that's something that maybe we can talk about, because I'm a big hater of age groups, really. I'm not a big fan of this. Because you were born between these 2 dates, you have to train with this group all the time. I think that's a bit stupid. But what we'll often do is, if we've got a couple of age groups, we might split them into 3 groups, where we have, the very best kids, and then with one group, and then the kids that are maybe not as physically or emotionally well developed in another group, and then the middle kids in another group. And we'll split off into some groups, and usually I'll take a group, and one or two, the other coach will take a group. Generally, we work on possession sort of games. So different challenges, different games, but generally accentuating possession, passing and receiving. So they get lots of contact with the ball, but in a quite competitive situation. And so we'll do that again, say from 25 past 6 till half past 6, that sort of time, till maybe 10 past 7, something like that. So again, they got about 40 minutes of that, and then we'll play them some 6v6 or 7v7s till about 7:45, 7:50, and then that's it. Then we go. So generally, a typical session would be, if you split them into thirds of say 30 minutes to 35 minutes per third, you've got 3v3, 4v4 games, then some sort of technical practice stroke possession type game, and then sort of 6 or 7-side games.
Yeah, so having witnessed it, it starts with a handshake and also starts with you connecting with the kids, right? How was school? How you doing? Connecting with the child and stuff like that. So a lot of free play. I was amazed when I went that the first key coaching principle, first key coaching factor of a younger coach running the session was, the very first thing was have fun. You know what I mean? I find that over here in the States, we're so rigid at times that we're looking at our lesson plan and trying to reach our objectives, and we forget that they are 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. And if the best club in the world can say, hey, have fun, that's our first principle, I think there's times where we miss the boat.
I think there, Chris, I think you've got to put yourself in the kid's position, because the kid arrives to you at whatever it is, 5:30, 5:45, 6 o'clock, and they've had a full day, so they've been up at whatever time they've been up, they've been all day at school, and some of these kids have had to leave school, dash home, get their training kit on, have a bite to eat very quickly, jump in the car, and a lot of them travel an hour or so to training. So by the time they get to us, I think it's unreasonable to expect them to then be completely locked on to some sort of, complex, high-intensity practice that you've been, you spent all day designing. And I think it's totally unrealistic. So what they want to do is they want to connect with you. They want to have a laugh. So it might be, a few of our kids support Man City or something like that, and hopefully if City have lost at the weekend, you might have a bit of banter with them, or City have done well or whatever, you might have a bit of a laugh with them. Or if they've had a haircut, you might take the mickey out of the haircut, and when you get that finished then, and just anything. Or if the sisters had a cross country, at the weekend the sister was doing a cross country race or anything like that, to connect with them, make them laugh, and then make them feel welcome, where they hopefully then the shoulders can just then drop, and it's like, oh great, I'm here. Right? No matter what's happened during their day, they might have had an argument with their parents, or I don't know, you don't know what's happening in kids' lives, so they might have a really bad day at school, but I'm here now, and it's safe, and these guys are here, and we're going to have a great time, and I can just chill out and be myself, really, and just play football and enjoy myself. So I think, so they always come over. Chris was right, the kids will come over and they'll shake hands with the coaches and say we flirt them into the games. But it's that connecting with them and just reassuring them that, whatever happens now, for the next hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, we're going to have a great time together.
Yeah, and how often do they train, Tom, at those ages, let's say 9 and 10?
They'll train 2 evenings a week, and then Saturday morning, and then they usually play games on a Sunday.
Yeah. So then, just switching gears, Tom. Steve Davis from New York. He's on, but he's on mute because he's actually doing a class at one of, I think it's Anglian Ruskin University or something. He's doing his masters in football and stuff. So he has a couple of questions. He says, do you see relative age effect at United? And are there any other determining factors other than technical, physical, and tactical that help you identify players?
Okay, so they're 2 different questions. So
yes,
let's
absolutely.
take the first one first.
Yeah.
So just repeat the first one again.
Do you see RAE at United, relative age effect?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a chat with Steve. We personally connected the other week about it. It's something that I'm really interested in, because I see kids at United that we cut off September 1st is our cut off. So there are kids in our program that are early September birthdays or October birthdays, and really they're not that great. They're not. They've got selected because they are physically, mentally,
ahead,
more developed. And so at the point of selection, they've had all the advantages, and they're actually, so 2 or 3 years down the line, they're actually, they're good players because they're in our system. But actually, I look at them and think, well, if another kid would have had that opportunity, that wasn't so instantly appealing, let's say, for selection at the age of 7 or 8 when we look at our kids, then if a July or August birthday, because they're 10 months behind them, then would they have actually done better with that opportunity? So I think definitely, as I said earlier, I'm not a lover of age banding kids, because as soon as you put the demarcation point in, then you're going to advantage. It's going to be an advantage to one group, and it's going to be a disadvantage to another group. So yeah, I definitely think, in answer to Steve's question, that you see it at Manchester United. We try and be aware of it, but I think, like anything, whenever you're selecting, because you've given a group to select, then you are going to be swayed by certain factors, aren't you? You are going to be swayed by the ones that are more effective, as much as you try not to be, and how the ones that are 10, 11 months younger, how are they going to shine? How are you going to notice? You look at them, oh, he's a July birthday or an August birthday in our case, but you're trying to look for them to come on, then show me something. But because they're so immature, maybe physically or emotionally, then they won't. So it's difficult to select them.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to the second question, Tom, I think you answered that one very well. I think relative age effect is everywhere, and I think you can't avoid it. Do you know what I mean? I know that's in some countries.
You can avoid it. That's my point. Yeah, I think you can avoid it because the relative age effect never used to be a problem decades ago, but since adults started organising kids' football, then no, you can't. While adults are organising, then you're not going to be able to avoid it.
No, and
it wasn't a factor. It wasn't a factor in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, I think it's always going to be there, and I think it's how we handle it, right? And you look at countries like Belgium. Belgium have got 2 under-17 national teams and 2 under-19 national teams, split into the first half of the year and the second half of the year. And there's people that are dealing with quartiles, and I know you've had this conversation with Steve, and moving the kids around in the quartiles so they get to be the youngest, the middle, the oldest, and experiencing different things. I think that sometimes we're too fast as coaches to predetermine a kid's future, and going, I mean, look at the Harry Kane story, right? Cut from Arsenal, went to Spurs, apparently cut from Spurs, went back the next day, and the rest is geography, as they say. I think we've got to be patient, and I think each child, it's a prescription for each child, and it's not one prescription fits all, right? So, Steve's other question before we open up to others, and he says, are there any other determining factors other than technical, physical, and tactical that help you identify players? Now, I don't know whether you've been in the scouting system, but I'm sure you can talk a little bit about it. As a coach, I'm sure you identify players when there's teams you're playing against and going, wow, So I'll hand that one over to you. 2 great questions by Steve.
I think the factors that Steve mentions are the ones that people generally will use to select. Unfortunately, in England, especially the physical side, so you do tend to get people will be attracted to the bigger, stronger, faster kids. But for me, I think it's attitude and temperament are vital, and they're things that are completely undervalued. And there's a lot of reading that I'm doing at the moment. Things that keep coming up are things like resilience, and not just in football, but in other sports as well. You hear people talking about the importance of resilience, and that sort of thing. And again, obviously, Marcus Rashford is someone that's flavour of the month at the moment, but he's a kid that was very much like that. He was very, I mean, he wasn't huge, he wasn't physically great. He always had a bit of pace about him, and he was technically good. He was very good, but he had quite a calm personality and a very determined personality. And someone like Cameron Borthwick-Jackson, who played in the first team this year, he was a very determined kid, to the point where I had a conversation with his dad a couple of months ago when he was playing when Cameron was in the first team, and he was saying that there was a meeting that we had, myself, Cameron, and his dad, where I explained when he was 11, and I explained that he wasn't performing at the required standard at that point, and he had to do. I gave him a list of points that he needed to improve in order to stay at the club. And after that, his dad was saying that was a massive turning point for him, because at that point he hadn't really appreciated the opportunity, I don't think. And so to be told that, look, unless you book up your ideas and you improve in these areas, then you won't be at the club much longer. You know, on the one hand, it's pretty harsh for an 11-year-old, but on the other hand, for him in particular, it was the turning point for him. And him and his dad went home and they were like, "We're going to show him." And after that, they wrote some goals for the near future. And every year, every season, they wrote some goals, and that really helped him to focus and progress through the club. When his dad told me that, then I was really pleased, because I felt that, you know, that I'd had an influence, but also it showed me again that it was his resilience and his determination to succeed that was key. And so, as Steve lists there, what did he list? Like technical, tactical, and physical traits. You know, so that determination, the desire to actually succeed is very, very important, because we've all been around kids that have been physically talented, technically great, but they don't care. They don't care about the game. Their work ethic isn't great, and so they'll drop by the wayside. Whereas other kids that have got that determination, that are so focused, and it matters so much to them, you know, they will succeed with a less amount of ability.
Yeah. So I think the cliched saying is hard work will always beat talent that doesn't work hard.
Yeah, that's something that for quite a while that was in the coach's room at the Carrington training ground. That was written on one of the whiteboards. Well, it's really true, and cliches are there for a reason, because they are. The people use them often because often they're true. I'd definitely say that the factors that Steve puts down are important, but a massive factor that I think is completely undervalued is that grit, that resilience, that determination to prove yourself and improve and to get to the top.
Absolutely. So, Tom, earlier on you mentioned you're not a fan of like the cut-offs and the birth years. You know, we've been going through tryouts, player placements here, trials, as it were.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there's times where we've not done a very good job as clubs, or, you know, of sharing, hey, this is where we see your child. But a lot of parents see their child as the golden child, and they should be playing up a couple of years. What do you generally do at United? Obviously, there are cut-offs, and unfortunately, there are more rules and more adults involved with kids football. I think if we have less rules, less adult involvement, to some degree, I think we get a better product. So, you know, what kind of things do you do at United with, you know, that talented, gifted player who could technically, tactically, physically play up a couple of years? What, you know, but socially and emotionally, they're not quite ready. What kind of diet or prescription do you do for them?
Well, again, it depends very much on the kid. So in the foundation phase, so under 9s, 10s, 11s, you know, we often do train together quite a lot. We mix the age groups quite regularly. So, you know, if they do get exposure to older kids, just naturally from being in that group, but we will have certain kids where we'll just put them up. We'll say, you know, we'll move them up an age group if they're coping too easily and they're not being challenged by their own age group. Likewise, we'll actually move kids down as well. So, you know, if a lad is physically, you know, not coping, but they've got all the other qualities that we want, you know, he's got great balance, great technique, he's an intelligent kid, his decision making looks good, but he's just getting muscled out of things at the moment, then, you know, we'll actually move them down and we'll explain it to the parents. And, you know, often, I'm sure in your scenario, the parents don't take very kindly to that sort of suggestion. Oh, why are you doing that? You know, do you want to get rid of him and blah blah? And we'd say, no, the opposite. If actually, the easiest thing would be to say we'll release him, but what we're looking to do is to almost get a bespoke program for him. It's harder for us to manage if we're moving kids up and down, whether it's permanently or, you know, just temporarily. That's a harder thing to manage. But if we think it's the best thing for the kid to have a spell where they play up or spell where they play down, you know, then we'll do that if we feel that will benefit the kid, and we'll review it quite regularly. But maybe that it's just initially for a couple of weeks, or maybe a month, or maybe it'll end up being, you know, quite permanent. So we've got kids in our system now that have played up from a very young age, and we've got kids that have just occasionally played up.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, Tom. As Manchester United, you can do that. As Rush, it, it can be a little tricky. So, my son actually played where his physical literacy was this year. So my oldest son, he's going to be 13, June birth, very small, 10th percentile. By standards over here, he should have been playing 11v11, but we have an in-house league, so he actually played where his physical literacy was. So he played with the 12s, the 11s and 12s. Still plays the game, enjoyed it. I put him there not to be the stud, but I put him there so he'd keep in the game, and it was right in line where his development was. Well, since that, he's continued to play. He wants to keep on playing. Otherwise, he'd have dropped out, and he would have become one of those 70% that quits over here at the teenage years. So
That's the key thing is the education and communication of the parents. And unfortunately, I'd imagine a lot of the parents in the States, they just equate their kid's development with what's happening now. So if he's not on the 18, then he's not doing very well. If not, and they don't appreciate that. Some kids it's a slow burner, so they'll, like your lad is a June birthday, so he's got a lot of things stacked against him. So in order for the best thing for him to be happy, because ultimately, I'm a parent myself, so you want your kids to be happy, don't you? That's the most important thing. Whether he's playing on the A team or the B team or whatever, you want your kid to be happy. And if he's happy and progressing, that's the most important thing. So, yeah, it is easier to be Manchester United. It's still not easy because people want, it's a natural thing. They seem to think, well, if he's playing with the top team, and especially as we go to tournaments, and if the kids, we can only say, if we've got an 8-a-side tournament, we've got quite a few at the moment, 8-a-side tournaments. So you can only take like a dozen kids. So how do you choose those dozen kids? And if obviously because they're representing Manchester United, you want them to go and perform well at the tournament. But on the other hand, you want to give lots of different kids the opportunity. So do you always pick the best players, or do you give different kids the opportunity? And how do you, then you've got to explain different selection criteria, which is not easy for people, because they just say, well, you haven't selected my son, you don't think he's a very good player, you want to move to a different club. And I'd imagine that's the sort of reaction you'll get quite a bit over there.
Well, we do get that reaction because it's pay to play over here. I think another question from Steve here, Tom, is do you offer any type of parent education? And I remember having the conversation with you about when Sir Alex was there, that he would come in when the kids came in to like under 12, I believe, when they were allowed to sign. I can't remember the exact age, but he would talk to the parents, you said, and then, I remember you saying something about the kids at 9 didn't get the logo on the shirts, and then they just got red shirts, and eventually they started getting the logo. So if you want to, answer Steve's question in that and touch upon that a little bit, that would be great, Tom.
Yeah, we do have meetings. So generally at the start of every season there'll be a meeting, and there'll be senior members of the club. Again, in his earlier days, Alex Ferguson would be far more involved, so he would be involved with those sort of meetings. Sort of latterly, when he was manager, then less so, just because his job was so big. But the parents are spoken to, and a lot of these points are emphasised over and over again. And so we have almost like an initiation meeting at the start of every season, and then during the season we'll have group meetings as well, in order to explain certain situations that might be happening, like I've said about tournaments, to explain about what's happening with certain tournaments. And then each year there are 2 occasions where we'll have sit-down meetings individually with parents. So it's difficult to get the balance right, because on the one hand, I think it's very important to communicate as much as you can with parents, but on the other hand, our role is working with the kids, and the more you're dealing with the kids, the less you're dealing with the parents. But so it's getting that balance right of how much should you communicate with the parents, and how much should you just ignore the parent. The parents turn up, look, give me your kids, the kid's going to be happy, it's going to be having a great time, don't worry about it. So it's a difficult balance. I think it's very difficult to say, are you talking too much to the kids and therefore not spending enough time? Sorry, are you talking too much to the parents and not spending valuable time with the kids, or are you completely ignoring the parents, and then they start to talk and some get unsatisfied with certain situations, and you're storing up a potential problem for yourself. So I think overall our communication's pretty good, but yeah, I do think it's something that we need to review on a regular basis. And again, it's everyone's different. There are some parents that, you give them have a meeting with them individually. They say, look, it's fantastic. My kid's happy. He loves it. He loves to come. You're doing a great job. We're so grateful for what you do. See you. And it lasts a minute. And there are other parents that are very high, hard work, very hard work. I'm sure you get that over there, and it's how much the ones that are very needy, how much do you give them attention, that will just keep feeding their desire to be spoken to, and how much you just say, look, enough's enough. Your kid's happy. Let's get on with the job. So I think having some formal meetings is a good idea.
Yeah. So we have another question from Ruth, Tom. Thanks for answering that one, and you're spot on with what you say, and I know you've spent some time in the Chicago area and dealt with parents as such. But we see them as a part of the team, and we do have to educate them, right? They're the team behind the team per se. So we have a 24-hour policy, after games, trainings, if there's an issue, and it generally works pretty well. And we are, you're working with people's prized possessions, as it were. A little different for us, again, because people pay to play, so there's times where they think they can have a say, which sometimes it's good input, sometimes you have to take it with the emotion involved and stuff like that. So, but
also you get a point where with you they're buying a product, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you say, this is our product, this is our record, this is our reputation. We've got, this is what we stand for. The Rush organization has got a great reputation all around the States and in different parts of the world. We're committed to looking after your kid, making sure your kid, boy or girl, is pastorally looked after, that we want them to enjoy their football, that we want them to be make friends, and this is what we're about at Rush Soccer Club, right? So
absolutely.
So you say that to them and then say, right, if you trust us to deliver that, give us your kit and trust us to get on with it. And the more you interfere, then the more, because kids get embarrassed, don't they? If their parents are constantly going there, it doesn't help the kid at all. So I think there does come, even in your pay-to-play model, there does come a point where you have to say, look, this is what we are, this is what we stand for, we're bloody good at what we do, because I know that at Rush you've got some fantastic people there that really care about the kids. That's what more do you want? You want, if it's my kid or your kid, Chris, you want people to care about your kid, don't you? Look after them. So look, you've got coaches that care for your kid, want the best for your kid on and off the pitch. Just trust us to get on with it. And I think if that message is really strong, and if someone does keep coming back and complaining, I think as an organizer, I'm not really telling you to do your job here, but I'm saying that I think there comes a point for any organisation to say, look, maybe this isn't for you then. If you're going to be like, we've got a good reputation, unfortunately, just like with any product, if you're not happy with this product, lots of people are, but maybe it's not for you. And I think the organisation gains strength from doing that. That's not a sign of a weak organisation. It's a sign of a strong organisation to say, I'm sorry. Maybe
absolutely.
This is the best thing for you.
Absolutely. I think you hit the key word there, was trust as well. And sometimes when they don't know you and we're not communicating and we're not sharing our philosophy, it's hard to trust that. So, we are getting better as a club at doing that. So, Tom, a question from Ruth Nicholson. And I know you know Ruth as well. She says,
hi, Ruth.
how does your parent communication education change as your players grow and increase in age?
Yeah, and that's where, I know in the States a lot of the focus is on college scholarships, isn't it? So, and that's pretty serious. But then as our kids at Manchester United get older, you get sort of 14, 15, 16. Well, at 16 they could be pretty much full time in football, so they leave school at 16. So in America, that would be your, at the end of their sophomore year at high school, they'd leave school and go full time at the club and receive 1.5 days of education a week, which isn't a great deal for their junior and senior year. So you're talking pretty serious levels of commitment, and I think to reflect that as the kids do get older, that communication with the parents does change, and it becomes, at my level, with the foundation phase, when I communicate with parents, is your kid happy? Does he enjoy it? Is it progressing? Are there any problems? No. Okay, let's move on. But when you get into that situation where they could be leaving school at 16, then if I'm a parent of a 14, 15-year-old, I'm going to want to know, is this likely to happen? And often they'll move away from home and they'll live in digs, as we call them, live with a family. And so these are pretty serious changes to the life. So I think that 14, 15, 16 year group, then the communication gets a lot more serious, and you're dealing with big decisions, and sometimes you're dealing with agents and money as well. So I think to answer the rest, it does get different. Are there anything more specific, Ruth, that you wanted me to answer?
She's shaking her head no, she's on
No,
mute.
is that good?
Yeah, that was a great answer.
That's good.
Thanks, Ruth. So, Tom, just, I know the players, I know Eamon had little logbooks for the players.
Yeah.
Is that part of where they make their goals? Do you as coaches look at those logbooks and say, hey, and kind of do an individual development plan for each kid and say, you need to work on this area, I think you need to focus on this, how formal is the evaluation process? How often? And tell us a little bit about these hidden logbooks.
In the foundation phase, no, it's not very formal at all. So those logbooks, which we didn't actually do this season, we talked about it. Eamon Mulvey, who you're referring to, who's the lead foundation coach for Man United, we said we should reintroduce them because I think when you came, it was probably a couple of years ago when you saw them. But they're not really anything more than a device to try and get talking to the kids. So we get them to fill it out, like who's your favourite player, so there's a few questions about football in general, who's your favourite team, who's your favourite player, what positions you like to play, and blah blah. There's questions like that, and then there are questions about their practice routine, and they'll give them challenges like how many keep-ups can you do, how many different turns, so different technical challenges in there, but really it's not to monitor them closely on what they're doing. Much more, it's just a device to say, Chris, have you got your book with you tonight? Oh yeah, just nip and get it, and then you'll get it, and you maybe look at something, and it's just a way of starting a conversation really, and then getting to know the kid better. So, for example, there was one particular lad that, just through chatting to him with these books, I found out all about his family. So how many brothers and sisters he's got, where he lives. The fact that just outside his house he got a green space that pretty much every night him and his friends would go out and play football on this area of grass. And so I got to learn all these things that were so valuable in my relationship with him, because I know that then he's out every night practicing with older kids, with his older brother who was at a different club at Bradford. But also then you get to chat. Let's say, what's your favourite team, what's your favourite player? And I said at the beginning, when you connect with the kids at the start of a session, these things are really useful to know. Brothers and sisters, all these things. So, no, it's not something that we use to formally assess them, because we don't really formally assess them at all. It's a great way to get to know the kids a bit better, and for them to write down things that they want to share with you as well.
Brilliant, thanks, Tom. So, tell us a little bit about Tom Repton, Tom Statham, away from Manchester United. Tell us a little bit about what you do, and and I mentioned Repton there, obviously, jumping the gun. And tell us a little bit about, share with the other coaches, because I know about the festivals and the stuff you do, because we're very interested in coming over and doing that. So tell us a little bit about that, if you could, Tom.
that I go to Chicago. I'm going in 10 days time to I've been going to Chicago since 2000. As a good friend of mine called Bill Andrews, that's a goalkeeper coach out there, so I've been going out to Chicago for a long time. And then in I think about 2004 or 2005, he brought a group of kids from this club called Strikers Fox Valley over to England, and I organised a tour, really a tour, because I was coaching at a private school, and I coach at, Chris mentioned Repton School, which is a private boarding school. So just put the two together. So the kids, it was the school holidays, so the boarding facilities were empty that the school would normally use. So the Strikers kids went into the boarding facilities and stayed there, and they've got great pitches there. So I organised a week-long tour for them, and I got some academy teams to come and play them. And from that, some of the academy teams said, "This is fantastic. Do you organise something like this pre-season in the summer, in August?" And I said, "No, but I could do." So that August, I organised something for a handful of clubs to come and train and play against each other in this sort of really, really nice informal setting of a private boarding school. And really, from that moment, I've been doing it on a regular basis, and it's grown now to I use Oakham School, which is a school near Leicester, and so I run an under 12 and under 14 festival. So we have kids coming from, we've had clubs from Norway, we have FC Dallas come over, we have clubs from Scotland, clubs from Ireland, clubs from all over England. And then I also, for the first time this August, I've got a tournament with Manchester United, an under 16 tournament, Manchester United, Chelsea, Leicester. I've got the Norwegian FA sending a team, Dundee United from Scotland, again some other English clubs like Millwall, Bristol Rovers, Bristol City. So now, and I've got girls events as well. So Arsenal, Liverpool coming this year, Sunderland, Millwall. So it's grown where I've used, in a way, I've used my contacts and my reputation, I suppose, from my work at Manchester United, in order to get people that I know and like at clubs that I know have got good philosophies and good ethoses, that to come together at Easter time and in August, and just play games with each other or have training sessions and training camps. So ideally, we've spoken about it, Chris, haven't we, about getting your kids at Rush over, whether it's just your Virginia group, or if you want to put 2 or 3 regions together and bring some kids over. It's something that I'm looking to involve. So you come over, have some training sessions. One thing that's got really popular is getting some academy coaches from Manchester United, or Leicester's very close, some academy coaches from EPL clubs, to work with the kids from abroad, like America or Japan, China. I'm talking to as well. So get some of those kids over, have a couple of days of training sessions with some top English coaches, and then 3 days of games with English academy teams, but also maybe academy teams from China, Japan, America, Norway, and Scotland, Ireland, things like that. So just putting together a week of, which would be a great experience really for the kids, not just from a football point of view, but socially as well, meeting lots of different people. And that's a big emphasis. So I try and make sure that they all eat together, the school dining room that they eat in, try and make sure that they try and mix. And at first people are a bit reticent, but try and get the coaches talking. I mean, one of the things I'm going to do for this year, for the first time, is have a coaches seminar. So on one of the nights, we're going to, with this tournament that I've got, we're going to just get the people, the physios or the medical people can look after the kids in the boarding house for an hour, and we're going to get together, maybe a few cans of beer or a few cups of tea or whatever, and we'll just talk football like we're doing now. I'm doing most of the talking, obviously, but having it a bit more interactive, where we'll just get a dozen guys together from different, because I think that's the best place to learn, is when you exchange ideas.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. And Brian Lux, who's on, and hopefully he'll say a few words, runs our Select program. So Select, for want of a better term, is our best kids from all around Rush, like Rush national teams, and then they
Yeah.
go away and compete. You know, I was fortunate enough to take a group of boys to Italy
Yeah.
this year, and we ended up playing in the Pro Margetta Cup, I think it was, and played Juventus, played Spezia. So it was very interesting. It was very eye-opening. You know, the boys went as boys and came back as young men,
Yeah.
as it were. But I really like the sound of the, you know, and I see you emphasize festival. It's not a
Yeah.
tournament. It's heavily weighted on player development, right?
Yeah.
And
And
coach
and
development.
coach
Yeah,
development. Yeah.
and coach. So I did send the little thing that you sent on to me. I did send it to Brian, and we're looking at it. And I think the timing might be tough for some, but you know I'm going to take a run at it and make sure we have a group come over, and whether it's from several rushes or just Virginia Rush, it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I think it'd be. I've watched the videos, and you know I'm enamored with it. I think it's brilliant. I think we need to get Rush over there and represent him. So I think that's
Well,
happening sooner rather than later, Tom. To be fair.
hopefully, yeah, hopefully we'll do it in 2017. And I think the key point is that I'm not decrying a lot of the tournaments people go to. I mean, say at Manchester United, we go to tournaments, but a lot of the tournaments that you go to are very big. You've got dozens and dozens of clubs there. You know, it's a huge event, and there's sponsorship all over the place and all this sort of stuff, and that's good. But what I'm doing is very different from that. It's, you know, Oakham School. It's Oakham itself is just a small town. It's a market town. It's a beautiful place. It's really safe. So you're in what, a classic English town, really. You know, it's really nice. You can wander around the town from the school. The pitches themselves, you know, it's self-contained as well. There aren't that many pitches, so we can't grow that much bigger. So what I look at doing, it's much more intimate. You know, it's rather than being loads of people around and it being a big event, it's a very small event. And you know, I said before, the emphasis is on the kids getting on together and interacting, and the coaches interacting, and just making sure they go away with a great experience and immersing themselves in English culture. Because I'm sure they go into a place that's not a tourist, you know, it's not a tourist event. So if I go to the States, a lot of people will go to the States, they'll go to New York or they'll go to Disneyland or whatever. But actually, they're not meeting the real people there. And when you come to Oakham School, you're actually in a part of the country that's not very touristy, but it's very real. And you'll be meeting a lot of the local English people, and it's you know, it's a really low key, intimate event in that way. So it'd be great. Yeah, it'd be great to have a group, and I'm sure if you brought a group over next year, you'd love it, and you know, you want to keep coming back because everyone. And that's the great thing is the clubs just keep coming back every year, and that's hopefully you know, I take that as a sign you're doing something right, aren't you? When people just keep coming back over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. So cultivating relationships, right? And making that happen. Um, so a couple of last questions, Tom, because we know your
Sure.
time's valuable. We can't thank you enough for coming. First one is Leicester, right? Did anybody see that come in? We'll
Oh
take them one at a time. Thoughts?
no, no one saw it coming, did they at all? Because it was 5,000 to 1 at the start of the season, and a lot of people thought they'd get relegated. But I think what's great is it's that it's a bit like the MLS in a way. Is the teams in the MLS that have splashed a lot of money? Like I know New York City splashed a lot of money on people like Frank Lampard and Andrea Pirlo, and they've not done so well. But yet it was the final was Portland Timbers, wasn't it, and Dallas, and they were clubs that had not invested in big stars, but had got very much a team mentality. And I think that was the case with Leicester as well. They got a very strong team mentality, and they were very well led. And again, I get back to the discussion we are having with the kids at United. When they arrive, they enjoy it, and it's a you know, they want to be.
Tom? Tom, we've lost you for a moment. Can everybody hear me? Guys, and unfortunately, oh, Tom's back on. Looks like Tom's back on. Tom, are you with us? Tom, are you with us? All right. Unfortunately, it sounds like we've lost Tom. I think he's back on. Tom, are you on? Tom's back on.
Wow.
Hey, great. I don't know what happened, but you looked at the picture froze there. You were very passionate. It was
I was
all about.
mid-rant. I was mid-rant.
Yeah, you were. It was great. You know, like you said, it was all about the enjoyment, the togetherness, and of course they talked about. They showed those three words that you said, right? Resilience, grit, determination. They had a camaraderie like no other team. And then final question. And you don't have to answer this one. The appointment of the special one. You know, I know you and I went back and forth privately on this one. You know, what's the? Let me ask you this. Let's put it this way. What is the buzz around the club now that the special ones come in and LVG is gone?
Got to be really careful what I say. But,
okay. You can choose not to. You can abstain, or you can go for the politically correct answer.
I think with the fans, I think the fans of the club had. I think the fans of the club wanted a change, because I think there was a feeling that Van Gaal did not play in a way that respected the history and the traditions of the club. And I think there's a hope that, although Mourinho is a very strong personality, that he will, you know, he's been close to, even when he was at Chelsea and when he was at Real Madrid, he was very respectful of Sir Alex Ferguson and very respectful of Manchester United, and it was quite obvious to me, looking on at that he would love to have been Manchester United manager, and I think he wanted to succeed Alex Ferguson, but that didn't come to him. Whereas actually, this might be the best time for him. You know, he's let a couple of people follow Alex. You know, people always said it wasn't good to be the man that followed Alex Ferguson. It was better to be the man that followed Alex Ferguson. Well, maybe they're wrong. Maybe it's better to be the man that followed the man that followed the man that followed Alex Ferguson, or whatever. So I think there's a lot of optimism, and I think if he starts to win games and the team attacks, you know, there's that thing at Manchester United from the first time I started working at the club, is that you've got to be the best in everything that you do, and there's that pride in being Manchester United. And so when you come to Old Trafford, if a team comes to Old Trafford and Sir Alex Ferguson's the manager, then it doesn't matter what the team is. We'll line up against you. We'll be better. You come to our place, we'll be better than you, and we'll dominate you. And all right, it doesn't always work, because football's not like that, is it? And occasionally the away teams do win, and things happen. But most of the time, that was the attitude of that we're Manchester United, we're better than you. Get on our pitch at our home, and we'll beat you. And I think there's a massive amount of confidence that breeds, and positivity. If basically you look around that changing room and say, look around the changing room, we've got the best players. You all are the best people for this job. Go around, get out on that pitch, express yourself, play for Manchester United, and you've got 70,000 people cheering you on. I think it's very difficult to go wrong there. But if you're very cautious and you know, you play in a style that doesn't enthuse the crowd and doesn't enthuse the players, and I think you're denying yourself a massive advantage of being Manchester United, really. So I hope that was my standard thing that I think I sent to you, and I sent to lots of people, Chris, that when they asked me about it, I said, I think if Jose Mourinho respects the traditions and history of Manchester United, then I think he'll do well.
Yeah, I think Steve asked the question. He said Louis van Gaal played not to lose, and Jose parks the bus. He says, what's the difference? And I think you've answered that, right? Respecting the traditions and the honours and the attacking style. Monsieur Cantona, who we all know so well, who just celebrated his 20th anniversary of that kick on.
Was that what it was? Oh yeah, it did. Yeah. It's early this season, wasn't it? Yeah.
I forget his name, but I know that his T-shirt was printed. His address was printed on T-shirt of Man United fans everywhere. But Monsieur Cantona recently said, you know, you know, it's funny, United's style, passion, football, they should have got Pep and they ended up with Jose. Um, but you know, he was not disparaging Jose, but I just think he was saying we'd rather see Pep. And he said that they went to the wrong club in Manchester. But I think time will tell, you know, because
Yeah, that's right.
both of them have a record of only being at a place for 3 to 5 years and then moving on, you know.
Right.
But I think Mourinho, in things I've read, wants to be there, and of course, who wouldn't as a manager? But also fancies himself. I think he's probably been humbled a little bit by his experience at Chelsea,
Yeah, he's
and I
got
think
something
we'll
to
see.
prove, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I think you know that the things to look at is he's made the home place a fortress, and under a certain uh, the gentleman that followed Mr. Sir Alex didn't, right. People look forward and lick their chops at coming to Old Trafford, and I think we'll see a different United, and you know, hopefully Mr. Mourinho leaves the youth systems alone because it seems to be working, and obviously your success as foundational coach of the year at the FA has been fantastic. And Tom, can't thank you enough for everything you've
Welcome.
done and everything you do. And we look forward to talking to you soon and hopefully seeing you in August 2017, if not prior. All right.
Brilliant. Okay, Chris.
All right.
Fantastic.
Thanks
Thanks
a
for
lot.
having me. And you know, I hope it was useful to people. And you know, Chris has got my email address and stuff like that. So if people want to follow up, I know I had a really good chat with Steve quite recently, you know, and I learned a lot from that conversation with Steve. So you know, I'm always happy to respond to people. And you know, I think the Rush organisation is something that is really special within, you know, kids football, boys and girls football in the States. And it's a great organisation. So I'm always keen to get involved and help people there, you know, at Rush. So yep,
Thanks,
please keep
Tom.
in
Let's
touch.
let's see if there's any final questions before you switch off.
Okay.
Um, and we just again, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. And final questions in the chat or on from live. Janella, I see you looking at intently there.
I just sent you the document.
Yeah. So,
Sorry,
hey,
what was that?
I just emailed the notes just now.
okay, brilliant,
All right.
brilliant. So I guess she's avoiding questions. She took notes. So thank you for everyone for joining us. Tom, this will be broadcast along that the internets, and we appreciate everything you've done. And thanks very much.
You're welcome. Take care.
Thanks, man.
See you,
Take
everyone.
care. All
Take
the
care.
best. Bye.
Bye.